Now, someone that I know would have managed there, taken one of his clubs there, that has managed Bentley a couple of times as well, Fulham and at Spurs, joins us next. I'm delighted to welcome to the show on Drive on talkSPORT, Martin Jol. Hello, Martin. How are you?
Hey, afternoon. I'm fine.
When I talk about Darren Bent, does it bring back fond memories?
Yeah, Darren was such a great lad, He came at Spurs and he can remember well. I think that we had players. I think that even Berbatov was still there.
Yeah, he was.
And Defoe and Robbie Keane and Canute. So it was not easy for him, But at that time, when you saw him at, for example, Charlton, yeah, he was scoring goals for fun. He was probably at that time the best finisher in the game.
Oh, how nice is that? And he's got a really bad foot at the moment. He's just come out of hospital, so you're flattening him. He's very happy. Listen, thank you so much for coming on. We've got so much to talk to you about, and of course, there's only one place we can really start our conversation, and that's with one of your old clubs that, ironically, you manage, Benty, and that's Tottenham. Are you surprised that they've let Antonio Conte leave with 10 games to go and not replaced him with a known established manager?
I'm not sure, I think if Conte would have stayed, would have been maybe funny, because after hearing his press conference, I don't think he wanted to be there, because I can't get my head around it. Why would you do that? Criticize everyone, the culture, the club, the board, the players. So I couldn't figure that one out. So I think there was a point of, how would you say it in English, no return. Almost, and to get another manager in now and change everything, I think they are still in the top four, So that was a strange thing. You could say Spurs did okay. Of course, if you saw him against Sheffield, I saw him, for example, last year against Middlesbrough. I had to put a few question marks, by then as well, because they couldn't even pressurize Middlesbrough, for example, and that was a smaller team, and I think. They went out of the FA Cup. This year they had so many disappointments, but they were still in a good position in the league. So the timing is bad. But if you do that, maybe he was ill, or he was still not recovered from his illness. I can't get my head around it, So I think it's a bit strange. But on the other hand, I think it's maybe better now, if somebody is so negative and is not in the same boat, I think you should get rid of him and try to do something else. And this assistant coach, Stellini, I think he did okay. So they probably thought, doesn't matter who is there now, because there's a few very good managers on the market. But I think if they do it, and for the last 10 games, even with, Mason was there, of course, a couple of years ago. So I think they are gambling a bit, but on the other hand, maybe the other ones, like Tuchel, is not available. He went to Bayern Munich. And of course, there is still one or two very good ones around. I think Nagelsmann, for example, is the best in Europe. He's young, he's gifted, talented. He did well at Hoffenheim. He did well at Leipzig, very well, with a smaller team, and they didn't have all the resources. So there is a few guys on the market, but, I can understand why they did that, and say, okay, there's 10 games to go. The spirit has to be better. So let's give it a go. And I think they're still okay. But on the other hand, if you look at Brighton and a few other clubs like Newcastle, they've got games in hand. So it's not easy, but it's doable.
When you look at the football, Gaffer, that you used to play, and then you look at what Pochettino plays, and then
hear you. I can't hear you there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now, yeah.
When you look at the football that you played and the way that Pochettino played, do you think potentially that's why maybe he lost the job, Antonio Conte, because he was quite negative in his tactics? Mourinho was the same. Even though these guys have been successful, the football that maybe they played maybe wasn't as exciting as maybe the football that you played and Pochettino. Do you think maybe that's a reason why they decided to part company with him?
Yeah, but I think at Spurs there, it's about winning now. They want to be in the top four. That is the target. So it was not this year. The expectations level was probably more like we have to win games instead of we have to have. At Spurs, you always have to win, but you have to play well as well. And that is what we try to do. And don't forget that Mourinho played in a similar system, 4-3-3, And this guy, Conte, he played a 3-4-3 most of the time, And I think if you only got 2 midfield players, you know as good as I do that you lack a number 10, and you've got 5 players at the back. So instead of a number 10 like Van der Vaart or Eriksen or Modric, you've got a defender there, you know. So there's one defender too many and one midfield player less. So how can you play well? And he always did that. He did that at Inter. He did it at Chelsea. But maybe there he was maybe too big for Spurs. At least he thought he was too big, because how can you criticize other people if you were responsible for the growth? I mean, he was taken, I think, by Daniel because of the development. They thought he can make us winners as well, and he didn't do that. So I think it's a bit off the mark to say that Spurs has no culture. They don't have winners. They can't win they can't win prizes. I think how many semi-finals did you play and quarterfinals? I mean, Spurs had a lot of them. You know, of course they only had one cup, the Carling Cup, in the last 20 years. But I mean, I'm always proud at them. You know, if I see them with the stadium, with the players they've got now. I mean, how many clubs will have the players up front like Tottenham have?
Martin, part of what you just said there, you're alluding to Antonio Conte's rant after Spurs threw away 2 points leading against Southampton 3-1, and the game, of course, ended 3-3. And then in the press conference, he was discussing Daniel Levy and the sort of the mindset and the mentality of the club over the last 20 years. Did you have a good relationship with Daniel Levy? Do you think there is a problem deep rooted in that club, or do you think it's whoever comes in, whatever manager takes over, it's their responsibility to move the club along?
No, it's a combination of things, you know. If you look at the players they've got, Darren, no, in our time, we didn't have the money, you know. There was no money. And if you look at them now, if you look over the last couple of years, especially after the stadium was built, because that was a very difficult year for Pochettino. Misunderstand, you know, Pochettino had 1 year away from home. He won 1 game. So there was a good reason to get rid of him at that time. But at least he played better football. But with whom? I mean, if you saw Eriksen, he made Dele Alli great, because at one time Dele Alli was 80 million. Son was unbelievable, you know, attacking the spaces. But that was only because of Eriksen, you know. He was floating inside and giving all these killer passes. So that is what they lack now. They don't have the creativity up front. The only thing they do is a transitional football. And they are good at it, but in my opinion, not good enough. So I think he should have changed it, you know, and play a normal 4-3-3 with wing players, what Spurs always did, you know, what they do over the last.
Oh, has he gone? Martin, are you there? Oh, we think we've lost Martin Jol. Martin? No, we'll get him back. What was it like, by the way, to hear him? You haven't spoken to him for how long?
Yeah, really good guy. He was one.
He's back. I think he's back. Martin, are you there? Martin?
Yeah.
Oh, we can hear you now. We lost you for a moment. Let me ask you then, who do you think the next Spurs manager should be?
Yeah, I don't want to give other clubs an idea, you know, but I think Nagelsmann is, what I said before, is, in my opinion, is the best. You know, he's a great manager. I think Tuchel, I mean, how well did he do at Chelsea? You know, he come in, he wasn't moaning. I think if you look at Chelsea now, if I look at the left, you know, they've got Mudryk, they've got Pulisic, they've got Sterling, and I mean that is not what Spurs should do, you know. But I think if you look at the last 2 years with Richarlison, I really thought that he would play. You know, he's on the bench. What do you think? Bissouma was 30 million. Emerson, I think Barcelona bought him for 12 million. They sold him on to Spurs for 30 million in the same month. Never happened before in football. So I think Spurs, you know, they spend a lot of money. So I think it's not only about players. I think a good manager, what we did in our time, you know, Darren can remember when I was at Spurs, and that is what, for example, Pep Guardiola does at Man City. I had at one stage had 6 players in the national team: Darren, Jermaine Defoe, Aaron Lennon, Ledley King, Michael Carrick, Jermaine Jennings. So I think it's more like to give the players an identity. And if you look at the Spurs players, I mean, I can't see them being better, you know. They don't develop in better players.
I think we've lost him.
So I think it's not a bad idea to change managers, but it's better to do it, you know, after the season, of course.
Boss, you said there about Nagelsmann. Do you think he's the right man and to convince Harry Kane? Because we know how good Harry Kane's been. Obviously, a lot of talk about his future. Do you think if they go and get someone like Nagelsmann in, that could convince Kane to stay?
Nou ja, if Kane knows the coaches in Europe, he knows that Nagelsmann was 32 when he went to Bayern Munich. I mean, he was at Leipzig and he played for the title. He was at Hoffenheim and he played Champions League football. But I mean, don't pin me down on a name, because I say Nagelsmann because I think he's really gifted and I know him. I don't know him personally, but what I see, I think it was ridiculous for Bayern Munich. They are playing for 3 prizes still. They played Paris Saint-Germain off the park a couple of weeks ago, and they got rid of him. Because it's a little bit inconsistent, because Lewandowski left, and they don't have a real striker, and Mane was injured, so it was not easy for him. But I think even in England, I mean, of course they can't get Eddie Howe, but how well did he do, I mean, I always say Pep Guardiola for me is the number one. Because do you really think that, for example, Man United would take Gundogan? Because they always say, they play all the best players in the world. Well, I don't think that, I think they got an identity. After, for example, De Bruyne, he went to Wolfsburg from Chelsea. Do you think that Man United would have taken him? No. He goes to Man City.
So Martin, let me ask you then, because I'm gonna push you down, right? Yeah. Because I love speaking to you. I'm a big fan of yours. But I just need a yes or no. Do you think Harry Kane should stay at Spurs?
I think so, because I know other players, they would have left years before. And, I mean, he got all the praise in the world. Top scorer ever, England. I mean, he's even bigger than Jimmy Greaves. Can you imagine? Jimmy Greaves, I mean, he was unbelievable. And he scored so many goals for club, for country. So I think he should stay. But on the other hand, I would understand him. But I mean, which club should he choose, to win prizes? Do you know? Chelsea? No. Arsenal? I'm still not sure, because they've got quite a young team. Man United? No. They won't win the title. But so it's not easy for Harry. I think he should stay. But they should give him, a little bit of hope and a good manager. And I still feel that Nagelsmann is the best manager around.
Okay, Martin, listen, thank you so much for coming on. I know Bentley was very excited about the fact you were coming on. It's great to hear your voice again. What are you up to now? If you don't mind me?
I would love to talk to him.
Well, why don't we get you in the studio? Where are you at the moment in the world? Are you in London? Are you abroad? Where are you?
I'm in Holland now, but I still live in Chigwell. So tell Darren that I'm the only one who was left in Chigwell,
I know Chigwell very well. When you're next in Chigwell, let me know and I'll pick you up and bring you in.
Okay, there. Good.
Thanks, Martin.
Cheers,
have a lovely afternoon.
Cheers, boss.
Pleasure, guys.
Thanks, man. There you go, one from Martin. Yeah, he just sounds so much fun to be alongside.
Even when you're having a bad time, he was the exact same.
He was great.
Full of confidence, full of energy.
Yeah, it's really interesting. He said Kane should stay and Nagelsmann should be the next manager of Spurs.
Nagelsmann, again, a manager that good comes on the market. You've got to strike, haven't you?
Yeah. A reminder, Tottenham's next game under their new management is away at Goodison against Everton on Monday night, live on talkSPORT as well.
What top game?
talkSPORT Drive with Andy Goldstein. Monday to Friday afternoon from 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.